Khan is no longer leading Pakistan, but he's still drawing huge crowds. Tens of thousands turned out to see him here in Lahore. He's been claiming America organized a conspiracy to remove him from power because of his foreign policy decisions. Most analysts don't believe that, but his supporters do.
Why is America so concerned that we are having good relationship with Russia and China? That is the main thing which is pinching America. They used to think because these slaves who are there in government right now, they used to suck up to these Americans.
किसने इनको इकट्ठा कर दिया? किसने इनको एक पेज पे ले आया? ये तो एक जगह पे बैठने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे. ये अमेरिका और बाहर की साजिश जो है, उसी ने इनको एक जगह पे इकट्ठा किया है.
Imran Khan is no longer Prime Minister, but he's clearly still a major player in Pakistani politics. You can see that from the size of the crowd here. But he's also fallen out with his former ally, Pakistan's military. That's going to make returning to office all the more difficult.
There's been unprecedented criticism of Pakistan's army chief in recent weeks, normally considered a red line in the country. Some of Imran Khan's supporters accuse him of complicity in ousting him, though Khan himself is towing a more careful line.
आर्मी इन्वॉल्व थी, ठीक है, और अवाम उनके अगेंस्ट हुई है. आर्मी के बाजवा जो हैं, ये चौथी प्राइम मिनिस्टर निकले इनके होते हुए, खुद वो बैठे हुए हैं और प्राइम मिनिस्टर निकली जा रही हैं.
Imran Khan and his supporters want early elections, but they're not due until next year, and Khan is now facing a number of inquiries that could damage him politically. All eyes are on what he does next to try and keep up his momentum.
of trying to avoid scrutiny of her economic plans as she prepares for an emergency budget if she becomes Prime Minister. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan is charged under the Anti-Terrorism Act after a fiery speech at the weekend. A BBC investigation unmasks the man responsible for a huge online community which traded non-consensual sexual images and videos of more than 100 women. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been charged under the country's Anti-Terrorism Act after being accused of making threats against the police and judiciary in a political speech he gave on Saturday. Hundreds of his supporters have gathered outside his home in the capital Islamabad to show their solidarity. They're threatening, in their words, to take over the city if Mr. Khan is detained. He's been a vocal critic of the government and the country's military since being ousted as Prime Minister earlier this year. Our correspondent in Islamabad, Pumza Falani, told us more about the allegations against Imran Khan.
His latest charges against former Prime Minister Imran Khan are expected to create a delicate political situation here in the country. And one of the main reasons for that is that although he is a former Prime Minister, he still enjoys great support on the ground. And he is a man who's been vocal about his ousting from Parliament. In fact, he has used his time since then in every rally to be harshly and hugely critical against the government, accusing them of a political ploy, accusing them of being handled from outside of the country. This is something that hasn't been received well by his supporters, who hugely believe in his ability to lead and believe that he was the man who was the right man for the job and running the country well. Now, here is where it becomes complicated. These terrorism charges will need to play out in court, except here in Pakistan, there's a very fine line between the courts, between the government and the military. Often those three can become blurred. We know that from behind the scenes politically, some within the governing coalition party have expressed concern about these terrorism charges possibly going forward because they're worried about that possibly causing civil unrest, or at the least strengthening Mr. Khan's already powerful position and his stance that he's taken that the political parties here are in fact on a witch hunt. We are expecting to hear from him as this case unfolds. We know that the lawyers have gone to court to apply for a pre-bail application. This is to prevent him from being arrested and rather hear this matter outside of court. He is yet to address these latest allegations publicly. We are keeping an eye on where he does this. He usually engages with his followers first on Twitter, and that is where most of his followers will be taking their first cue on how he intends to fight this matter and what their role should be. Pumza Falani, BBC News, Islamabad.
Well, let's take a moment to look at Imran Khan and how he first rose to and then fell from power in Pakistan. His cricketing career gave him a huge profile, with the highlight coming when he led Pakistan to victory in the 1992 World Cup. After retiring from the game, he entered politics, forming his own nationalist party in 1996 and being elected to Parliament in 2002. The popularity of his PTI party slowly grew, and in 2018 he became Prime Minister. But in April of this year, he was thrown out of office in a vote of confidence. Scenes filmed outside his home late on Sunday suggest he remains popular. Some analysts say his political success was underwritten by Pakistan's influential military and intelligence services, and his removal was inevitable once he had lost that support. Whatever the reasons, it remains the case that no Prime Minister has ever completed a full 5-year parliamentary term in Pakistan. For the first time in...
He keeps on making these kind of speeches. He actually meant that we will take legal action against the IGP, the Inspector General of Police, the DIG, and also against the Session Judge that have done the wrong decision. That was in the context of his Chief of Staff, Dr. Shahbaz Gill, that was apparently, for all practical purposes, was tortured in police custody on the nights of 9th, 10th and 11th August before he was presented to a judicial magistrate, and then they sent him to a judicial remand. So this is an ongoing political tussle. And these cases are not new, and now it has shot into prominence. There are already 10 such cases under Section 7 of the Anti-Terror Act against Imran Khan. for inciting violence and against the state on 24th and 25th of May 2022. And last night police tried arresting him as well, but they failed.
So was this one fiery speech too far for the authorities, given though that the effect has been for Imran Khan's supporters to rally round him on news of these charges being laid against him?
No, Anita, it's not that case. It's just like this, that the power tussle in Pakistani politics has actually deepened over the last few weeks, especially after the loss of Punjab to the ruling Shahbaz, Prime Minister Shahbaz and PTM government. They have lost Punjab. Now PTI is ruling in 4 provinces: Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, AJK, and also Gilgit-Baltistan. So the federal government of Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif is restricted to 27 kilometers of Islamabad capital territory. So there's a lot of tension, and they have launched several kind of cases against Imran Khan. I mean, one is the Tosha Khan case of receiving the gifts from the states. Another is the so-called foreign funding case, which is now called prohibited funding case. So they're looking for opportunities to keep him under pressure, to keep him in courts, maybe to arrest him. But if they wanted to arrest him, they could arrest him. People cannot really stop them from arresting, but they don't want to arrest him because it will be counterproductive politically. So it's an ongoing political battle between Imran Khan and the PDM government.
From a military perspective, Moeed, how potent is the situation right now there?
So it is believed that the PDM government is being supported by the current military setup. They come up and they brief us and they say, no, we're not really supporting, we are really neutral in this case, but the media, the political analysts and the politicians don't really believe it. So it's an ongoing battle. I think they're trying to disengage themselves from the politics, but they're unable to disengage because of the extremely sharp polarization that has developed between the current military leadership, between the former Prime Minister Imran Khan. That's a very troubling situation at the moment.
Okay, Moeed, thank you very much for your analysis of what's going on. Moeed Hassan Pirzada there. An investigation by Panorama has found a huge online community that was secretly sharing and trading thousands of non-consensual images and videos, including explicit pictures of at least 150 different women. The group, hosted on the social media site Reddit, has now been closed. Monica Plaha looks at how the platform and current criminal laws are not doing enough to protect victims against this new disturbing trend. And this piece contains references to suicide.